For 1,000 years, the church made knowledge so scarce that an ordinary Bible cost a year's wages. Then Gutenberg's press shattered that monopoly, until the church invented licensing and the index, turning liberation into new control. Today, big tech is doing the same. Scarcity is gone, but gatekeeping is back. Algorithmic, invisible, unstoppable. What exactly is the pattern, and how far have we already let it go? A single book meant months of labor. Monks hunched over wooden desks, copying every word by hand onto parchment scraped from animal skins. Each Bible devoured hundreds of hours, and the raw materials alone cost more than most families earned in a year. The result? A finished manuscript could command the same price as a skilled tradesman's annual wage. For ordinary people, a book was more fantasy than possession. The church owned nearly every copy. Even kings and nobles counted their libraries in single digits, if at all. Latin was the language of every sacred text, every law, every record. To read was to belong to a tiny chosen circle: clergy, a few scholars, and the highest nobility. Peasants and townsfolk lived entire lives without touching a book or hearing scripture in their own tongue. The church's grip on knowledge was absolute, enforced not by armies, but by scarcity. Every page was a luxury, every word a privilege to be granted or withheld. Permission to copy, to translate, to teach, these were tools of power, guarded as fiercely as any relic. Information flowed upward, never outward. The cost of a single book was a wall, keeping most of Europe locked in ignorance. The word was sacred because it was rare, and rare because it was controlled. Johannes Gutenberg was not a scholar or a priest. He was a craftsman with a problem to solve. In a cramped workshop in Mainz, he experimented with metal alloys, lead, tin, antimony, searching for a type that could be cast, reused, and set by hand. The breakthrough came when he combined these metals with a screw press borrowed from winemaking and an oil-based ink that clung to the page. Suddenly, the impossible became routine. A single press could print 180 Bibles in the time it took a monk to finish one. The speed was staggering. Work that once took years now took weeks. For the first time, a book was not a badge of privilege, but a product. But the leap from idea to industry was not smooth. Gutenberg needed money. Enter Johann Fust, a wealthy financier who saw the promise and the profit. Fust loaned Gutenberg the funds to keep the presses running, but when repayment lagged, he sued. In 1455, a court sided with Fust. Gutenberg lost his press, his tools, and the rights to his own invention. Fust, with his partner Peter Schoeffer, took over the shop and ramped up production. The first commercial printing monopoly was born, not by royal decree, but by contract and capital. By the end of the century, more than 1,000 printing shops dotted Europe's cities. Books poured from their presses, millions of them. The old wall of scarcity collapsed. But with every new press, the question of who owned the means to print, and who could afford to, became just as important as the technology itself. Venice, 1469. The city grants the world's first official printing license. No book leaves a press without state approval. The idea spreads faster than any pamphlet. To print, you need permission. Printers become a guild, a brotherhood with rules, dues, and gatekeepers. The Stationers' Company in London gets its royal charter in 1557. Every book must be registered, every printer watched. The guild holds the keys to the presses. Unauthorized printing means fines, raids, even prison. By 1692, the Stationers' Company has conducted nearly 1,500 raids in a single year. 17 printers are jailed, 92 fined. The message is clear. The press survives, but access is rationed. Then comes the Vatican's masterstroke, 1559, the Index Librorum Prohibitorum, a list of forbidden books. Not just heresy, but anything unapproved. Galileo, Copernicus, unlicensed Bibles, all vanished by decree. The imprimatur stamp becomes the ticket to print. No approval, no book. The church and the state don't destroy the printing press. They don't have to. They build a wall of permissions. The press still churns out pages, but the words are filtered, inspected, and stamped. Information flows, but only through narrow, guarded gates. The gates aren't hidden. They're official. The age of open printing is over. The age of licenses and indexes has begun. William Tyndale risked everything for a single idea: that ordinary people should read the Bible in their own language. In 1526, his English New Testament rolled off a press in Worms, Germany. Illegal, unlicensed, and dangerous. The books didn't travel openly. They were hidden in sacks of flour, sewn into bales of cloth, slipped into crates marked for market stalls in London. Every copy was a threat to the church's control, and every route a gauntlet of customs searches and informants. Tyndale lived as a fugitive, moving from city to city across Europe, hunted by agents of both church and crown. Inquisitors raided homes, seized books, and interrogated anyone suspected of reading or sharing forbidden texts. In 1536, betrayal ended the chase. Tyndale was arrested near Brussels, condemned for heresy, and executed, strangled, then burned at the stake. His crime? Bypassing the gates, breaking the rules of permission. The message was clear. The cost of unapproved knowledge was not just exile or poverty, but death. For every Tyndale, there were hundreds more: readers, printers, smugglers, who risked their lives to move words past the walls. The gates were guarded, and the penalty for crossing them was final. Every information revolution runs on a cycle, 5 stages, repeating like clockwork. It starts with democratization. A new technology cracks open the gates. Suddenly, knowledge is everywhere, cheap, fast, and impossible to contain. Next comes panic. The old powers see their grip slipping. Authority shakes. Threats multiply. They scramble to restore order. Then, the infrastructure of control appears, not by smashing the technology, but by building new rules, licenses, approvals, filters, and gatekeepers. The flow of information is channeled, inspected, and managed. Remonopolization follows. The technology stays, but access is rationed. Only approved voices get the megaphone. The rest are sidelined, silenced, or buried in obscurity. Finally, the cycle resets. Another breakthrough, another wave of disruption. The pattern begins again. From Gutenberg to the open web, from printing guilds to platform algorithms, the methodology is identical. Each stage has its own tools, its own enforcers, but the logic never changes. Power adapts. The gates are rebuilt, and the cycle continues. Apple decides who can sell software to 1 billion people, and takes a 30% cut on every sale. If your app doesn't pass review, it never appears on the App Store. That's not a suggestion. It's the law of the platform. Google runs the same playbook. These are the toll booths of the digital world. Meta employs more than 15,000 moderators, working around the clock, scanning every photo, every post, every video. Most are contractors, following guidelines that shift without warning. Their job isn't to delete everything. It's to decide what stays, what gets buried, and what quietly disappears. The algorithm is the new index. Shadow banning makes your voice invisible without notice. No warning, no public trial, just silence. Parler, once a top-ranked app, was erased in 3 days. Apple and Google pulled it from their stores. Amazon shut off its servers. Parler's traffic dropped by more than 80% overnight, not because of a law, but because the gatekeepers closed the doors. The platforms don't need to burn books. They just remove you from the feed. Approval, amplification, erasure, controlled by code, enforced at scale. The gates are everywhere, but you can't see them. By 1500, more books existed than in the previous 1,000 years combined. But within decades, the Church's index of forbidden books and state licensing reversed much of that progress. Facts recorded in official Vatican decrees and city charters from Venice and London. The historical record is clear. Technology opened the gates, but institutions built new locks. Today, 5 tech companies, Apple, Google, Meta, Amazon, TikTok, control most of what billions see online, using approval systems, algorithms, and content moderation at a scale documented in transparency reports and financial filings. The specifics of how these algorithms operate remain largely undisclosed, just as the Church's censorship decisions were often kept secret. We know the pattern. Each wave of democratization is followed by new forms of control. The evidence leaves no doubt. Power adapts, and the cycle repeats. Whether this time will be different is a question history has yet to answer.